Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying with great glee on the television station that hasn't got a type big enough for me to read this. The story they don't tell you about Gilligan's Island. Alan Hale Jr. filmed entire episodes with a broken wrist, refusing to stop even as the pain got worse. But that sacrifice was nothing compared to what came later. From his desperate fight to escape his father's shadow to the cancer battle he kept secret from fans. This is the haunting truth about the man behind the skipper's famous smile. Alan Hale Jr. was born into Hollywood on March 8, 1921, in Los Angeles. His father, Alan Hale Sr., was a well-known actor who appeared in over 235 films. He grew up watching his father perform and learning about the business from behind the scenes. But having famous parents didn't mean he would have an easy career. He had to find his own way. His first time in front of a camera came before he could walk. Like many children of actors, he appeared in silent films as a baby. He probably had no memory of it, but it was his first step into the world of acting. As he got older, he spent time on studio backlots, watching professionals at work. By the time he was 10, he understood more about filmmaking than most adults. He wasn't just a kid hanging around sets, he was paying attention. He was learning. His first real experience as a performer came on stage. Acting felt natural to him. He knew this was the path he wanted to take. But Hollywood was changing fast. Silent films were gone, and sound had taken over. The industry had become more competitive. Even with his father's name, he couldn't just expect roles to fall into his lap. Before he could fully commit to acting, the world pulled him in another direction. When he was older, he attended military school, a place that demanded discipline and hard work. It was a different kind of training, far from the glitz of Hollywood. His first experience in film came in 1933 with Wild Boys of the Row, a movie about young drifters during the Great Depression. His role didn't make the final cut, but he still received screen credit. It was a small moment, but it showed he was already making his way into Hollywood. When he returned, Hollywood had moved on without him. He was no longer just the son of a famous actor, he was a man who had seen the world beyond film sets. But breaking back into the industry wasn't easy. He had to work for every role. He wasn't interested in being a shadow of his father. He wanted to build something for himself. In 1950, his father passed away. Up until then, he had always been Alan Hale Jr., but after his father's death, he made a choice. He dropped Jr. from his name. He wasn't just carrying on his father's legacy anymore. He was stepping out of his shadow. It was a new start, a new identity. At the same time, television was changing the entertainment industry. Movies were still big, but TV was reaching more homes than ever before. Hale saw the opportunity and adapted. He started landing television roles, moving with the industry instead of fighting against it. He appeared in films like To the Shores of Tripoli and Sweetheart of Sigma Chi. Even as his career grew, he faced a challenge that many actors deal with: typecasting. His strong build and warm presence made him a natural fit for tough, dependable characters. That should have been a good thing, but it also meant that Hollywood saw him in a very specific way. He was often cast in westerns and action films, playing the same kind of rugged sidekick again and again. In The Big Trees and The Sea Chase, he brought his usual charm and energy, but the roles didn't give him much room to show his full range. He even found himself playing Porthos in At Sword's Point, a role his father had played years earlier in The Man in the Iron Mask. It was a nice tribute to his family, but it also made it harder for him to step out of his father's shadow. Still, no matter what kind of roles he was given, Hale Jr. always found work. Over time, He built a career that stretched across more than 20,000 films and TV shows. As television started to take off in the 1950s, Hale Jr. saw an opportunity. He landed a recurring role on The Gene Autry Show, which helped him reach a wider audience. A few years later, he got his first major starring role in Casey Jones, a show based on the legendary railroad engineer. For the first time, he wasn't just a supporting character, he was the lead. The show only lasted 32 episodes, but it proved that he had the screen presence to carry a series. During this time, he stayed busy with guest roles on popular shows like The Range Rider, Annie Oakley, and Fireside Theater. He kept moving forward, but there were setbacks too. One of his early starring roles, Biff Baker, USA, didn't take off. The show was cancelled after just 2 seasons, leaving him in a tough spot. The unpredictability of Hollywood made him question his future. For a while, he even thought about leaving acting to go into real estate. That moment of doubt didn't last long. In 1964, everything changed when he landed the role of Jonas the Skipper-Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. Alan Hale Jr.'s journey to becoming the skipper on Gilligan's Island was anything but ordinary. Sherwood Schwartz, the show's creator, had a specific vision for the character. The skipper needed to be tough but lovable, strict but caring. He had to be the kind of person who could yell at Gilligan one moment and protect him the next. That balance was tricky to find. Schwartz auditioned plenty of actors, but none of them felt right. He needed someone who could command respect while still making audiences smile. Then, by pure luck, he spotted Alan Hale Jr. in a restaurant. There was something about him that stood out. He had a big presence, but he also had warmth. Schwartz could see it right away. This was his skipper. Hale didn't just get handed the role, though. At the time, he was in Utah filming a western called Bullet for a Bad Man. That's when he got a call from CBS about Gilligan's Island. They wanted him to come in for a meeting, but there was a problem. He had no easy way to get to Los Angeles, no flights, no rental cars, nothing. Instead of giving up, Hale made a bold decision. He hitchhiked out of Utah. He got a ride to Las Vegas, caught a flight from there, and finally made it to Los Angeles. Schwartz was already confident that Hale was the right choice, but this effort proved it. He barely even needed to audition. When he arrived at CBS, Schwartz reportedly told him, "If you'd like to be the skipper, you are." That was it. The role was his. But there was still one last test: his chemistry with Bob Denver, who had already been cast as Gilligan. Schwartz knew the show depended on their dynamic. The skipper had to be strict, but the audience needed to love him anyway. To make sure Hale could pull it off, Schwartz set up a special scene. The goal was simple: make the skipper as angry as possible and see if Hale could still be likable. If the audience turned against him, the character wouldn't work. Hale and Denver played out the scene, and it was clear right away that they had something special. Even when the skipper was scolding Gilligan, there was affection underneath it. He wasn't just yelling, he was looking out for his little buddy. That moment sealed the deal. Schwartz knew he had the perfect duo, and Gilligan's Island was finally ready to take shape. Hale's ability to balance strength and kindness made the skipper one of the most memorable characters in television history. His bond with Denver was real, and that chemistry made every scene feel natural. Alan Hale Jr. was the kind of actor who gave everything to his role. During the first season of Gilligan's Island, he took a bad fall while filming a stunt. He was supposed to land on a crash pad, but he missed. The impact broke his wrist. Most actors would have stopped filming right then, but Hale kept quiet. He didn't want to slow down production, so he just kept working. For weeks, he lifted heavy props, hauled coconuts, and even carried Bob Denver, who played Gilligan. He did it all without letting anyone know. He was in pain. His wrist kept swelling, but he never complained. Eventually, show creator Sherwood Schwartz noticed something was wrong. When he finally asked Hale how he managed to keep up with the role, Hale just smiled and said, "It wasn't easy." That one sentence summed up his entire approach to acting. He put the show first, no matter what. That same attitude carried over behind the scenes. Hale wasn't just the skipper on screen. he was a leader off-screen too. He made sure everyone on set felt like family. His friendship with Bob Denver was real. The way the Skipper and Gilligan played off each other in the show came naturally because Hale and Denver were just as close in real life. Hale even brought the nickname Little Buddy from a previous role, and it fits so perfectly that it became one of the most famous catchphrases in TV history. Hale was always the center of the fun. The cast played pranks on each other, and he was usually involved. He had a way of keeping everyone's spirits up, even on tough days. The entire cast, Jim Backus, Natalie Schafer, Russell Johnson, Don Wells, and Tina Louise, shared a rare kind of bond. That chemistry made Gilligan's Island special. It wasn't just another TV show, it was a group of people who truly enjoy working together. When the show ended in 1967, Hale faced a challenge many actors know too well. He was so connected to the Skipper that it became hard to find other roles. But instead of running from it, he embraced it. He voiced the Skipper in 2 animated series, The New Adventures of Gilligan and Gilligan's Planet. He reunited with the cast for TV movies like Rescue from Gilligan's Island and the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. Some actors try to distance themselves from their most famous roles, but Hale never did. He knew what the Skipper meant to people. He didn't just play the character, he became him. His comedic style was a big part of why the Skipper was so memorable. He grew up studying legends like Laurel and Hardy. Their physical humor, exaggerated reactions, and perfect timing shaped the way he performed. Oliver Hardy's dynamic with Stan Laurel, the big, frustrated leader, and the well-meaning but clumsy sidekick, was almost identical to the Skipper and Gilligan. Hale knew how to mix authority with humor. He could be tough one moment and completely exasperated the next. That balance made the Skipper feel real. Alan Hale Jr. lived a life filled with love, family, and a passion for acting. His journey included 2 marriages, each shaping different parts of his life. His first was with Bettina Reed Dorr, a woman he had known since childhood. They married in 1943 and spent the next 20 years building a home together. They had 4 children: Ellen, Brian, Chris, Lena, and Dorian. While Alan focused on his career, Bettina managed the household, making sure their children had a stable upbringing. As Alan's fame grew, the demands of his career increased. Long hours on set kept him away from home for extended periods. The distance took a toll on their marriage, and in 1963, they decided to part ways. Even after the divorce, they stayed connected through their children, ensuring that family always came first. The following year, Alan met Naomi Grace Ingram, a former singer who brought a new sense of warmth into his life. They married in 1964.